This game is called Tomorrow Will Be Dying. And there are some words. It means like flower, might be a bird, wind, month. Prologue. Start. Oh, I like this art style. I sing of brooks, of blossoms, birds and bowers. Okay, do I click? Of April, May, of June and July flowers. I sing of maypoles, hawk carts, wassails, wakes. Of bridegrooms, brides, and of their bridal cakes. I write of youth, of love, and have access by these to sing of cleanly wantonness. I sing of dews, of rains, and piece by piece, of balm, of oil, of spice, and ambergris. I sing of times trans-shifting, and I write how rose first came red and lilies white. I write of grooves, of twilights, and I sing the court of Mab and the fairy king. I write of hell, I sing, and ever shall, of heaven, and hope to have it after all. The argument of his book, Robert Herrick. Ooh, nice title call. Tomorrow Will Be Dying. Announcement. In a few minutes we will be arriving at Mokuzai Terminal. Eri glanced up from her phone to look at the signs inside the train. Sure enough, Mokuzai is displayed in large electronic orange characters. She takes out her earbuds and taps her phone to pause the audiobook playing. Pink fake nail clacking against the screen. After ensuring she has everything with her in her pockets and bags, she stretches out her limbs, letting out a soft hum of satisfaction. The journey here was quite the chaotic one. Whether dealing with the poorly concealed gawking of passers-by, getting lost in the gigantic waves of bodies pushing her to and fro, or leaving all her belongings on the express train, she is exhausted with it all. Sitting here in this empty, run-down train with nothing but its rattling ambience to accompany her, a refreshing feeling washes over her like a gentle tide. Eri loves nights in Tokyo filled with bright, colorful lights, bustling crowds, and an undying liveliness. But there is something she misses about quiet nights in Mokuzai, where the only thing you can see are your own 2 feet. The reason she can indubitably name for this is that she misses her family back home. Visions of their small fishing business by the sea floats in her mind, and a warm feeling spreads throughout her chest. I hope that they've been doing alright without me. Eri smiles to herself, fiddling with a whale phone charm that they gifted her on the day of her departure to Tokyo. Playing with her charm like this strikes a chord from deep within, the action vaguely reminding her of someone, pulling forth a face she hasn't thought about in a long time to the surface. Her mind is suddenly filled with visions of short, black hair that danced in the wind and stoic, yet gentle eyes, an image that was nearly forgotten until these memories of her time in Mokuzai came flooding back. It was probably illogical how often and how easily Eri linked her hometown with that particular verdant gaze. Whenever Eri happened to come across her, Ashikaga Shion by her lonesome, and the other would be playing with her magical girl phone charm that just like this, seemingly unbothered by the fact that she was alone. And yet, if Eri squinted, she could even find an air of sadness past that vacancy at the edge of that isolated sphere. Eri rubs a thumb over her now warmed whale phone charm, allowing herself to reminisce over the enigmatic individual. Under the blaze of the setting summer sun, amidst the cries of evening cicadas, one of their school mysteries, albeit a rather asinine one, was unraveled. And on that day, Eri was set into motion. Now that's a lot of reading. Oh. Oh, this is Eri? Eri explored a multitude of hobbies growing up. Track and field happened to be the one stick when she'd explore the different clubs in her first year of high school. With that being said, when Eri pursued something, she would always put 100% into it. She genuinely loved running. She loved it more than anything in the world at the time. Everyone always said she had one-track mind, but it was thanks to that one-track mind that she brushed off any such mean-spirited statements. Which is why, even when carrying back big stacks of yellow cones to the sports field, she couldn't help but run. The June sun beating against her back even in the early morning. As she started placing cones throughout the field, she heard the rattling of the fence behind her. Turning around, she was greeted with the sight of her little brother, Masaru, climbing over it. Masaru! She threw the rest of the cones aside and sprinted towards him. Even with her speed, he'd already reached the top of the fence by the time she was there. He then jumped, grabbed onto the nearby tree branch, and promptly swinging down from it, landed nimbly on his feet. Ah, he's Masaru. How many times have I told you not to come into school that way? You could just sneak in through the gates. It's faster. No. It's faster, he shrugged. Eri had no idea where he got his brusque attitude from, and she had even less of an idea where he got the inkling to dye the ends of his hair. Not missing a beat, he took off his blue Randoseru backpack. Oh, this backpack is Randoseru backpack. And brought out a lunchbox wrapped in a fish-patterned cloth. The tag on the corner of said cloth had Eri's name on it. You forgot your lunch this morning. Ah, thanks, Masaru. She sighed and took it from his hands. Eri was relied on for preparation of the entire family's lunches and had been carried away in the whirlwind of busy work. She quickly unwrapped the cloth and checked on the box's contents, received to find each carefully prepared side dish remained unaccounted for. Any desire to scold her brother dissipated, and instead she almost burst into tears at the sight. Stiff. Alright, adios. He saluted and began to climb up the tree. But Eri spotted something stuck in the bottom of his sneakers and swiftly grabbed his ankle. Hello. Wait! What? He quietly hissed back, backlit by the sunlight beyond the tree leaves. Trusting her brother's grip on the branches, she turned his foot over and stared bewilderingly at the dusty sole, or more specifically, something stuck to it. What I said. Eri hesitated, for some reason opting to shield the offending item from her brother's supposedly innocent eyes. In the heat of the moment, she thought she might also dispose of it before he could unconsciously track bits into his elementary school. It's question mark. It's a new person. It's a cigarette, a new voice said matter-of-factly. Having nearly jumped out of her skin, Eri checked over her shoulder to identify the speaker. Oh, wow, she's pretty. Ninja! Standing there was the track team captain, Tsukimi. She wouldn't bat an eyelash at Masaru, being used to him randomly appearing at club practices every now and then, but Eri couldn't help but panic. Captain, this isn't what you think. Eri stammered wildly as she tried to get the cigarette out of Tsukimi's line of sight. Her effort only led to Masaru's foot slamming into her face as it jerked from being twisted about unnaturally. Okay, how should we do Tsukimi's voice? There's no use in hiding it. Look at your feet. Or it's gotta be a little bit colder, right? A little bit like sassy. There's no use in hiding it. Look at your feet. Eri still gingerly pinching the crushed butt between her fingers, did as she was told and let her eyes fall to the grassy patch under her feet. She was surprised to find cigarette remains scattered all around. I've been seeing these collected by this tree for the past few days. I didn't mean to report it to a teacher, but it slipped my mind. What with the track meet being just around the corner. Eri nodded understandingly, relieved to have avoided an unnecessary lecture. Well, you should get it done sooner than later. There's no way I'm letting some hooligans get away with throwing cigarettes at this poor tree. Agreed. Which is why you'll be going in my stead. You were the one who locked up the equipment shed yesterday, right? I was just about to set up some hurdles when I noticed the equipment is missing. Tsukimi stated, looking straight at Eri with a scrutinizing gaze. One of the pole vaulting poles. Oh, look, Tsukimi's face. It's a bit mad. One of the pole vaulting poles. What? No way! You're saying it was my fault? Whoa! Obara. We're also missing track spikes and jumping boxes. Obara, Eri's underclassman and shot put extraordinaire, added helpfully. Tsukimi raised a brow and simply placed her fists on her hips. What is this word? Admonishingly. Eri began to sweat under her stare. There's no way I'm scattered-brained enough to have left the shed unlocked, she thought. However, the captain's cold eyes led her to doubt her own memory. Her suspicion wouldn't have been baseless either. Last month it was a whole pack of relay batons. This was particularly serious. However, as they only had one other extra vaulting pole, Tsukimi finally relented, turning away with a sigh. I'm not trying to be mean. In circumstances like this, I have to consider all options. Either way, the others will more than likely place the blame on you. So it's in your best interest to figure out the equipment issues. Might as well report the cigarettes at the office while you're there. Having said her piece, Tsukimi left and began setting up for practice. Obara gave Eri a shrug and shortly followed suit. Seriously, why are you so forgetful? You're still here? Eri's gaze followed Masaru's finger, pointed to his foot, which she had been holding onto the entire time, squeezing it as if a stress ball. Once she released his legs with a murmured oops, she could clearly see the handprint she'd left imprinted on his skin. Now freed from her grasp, Masaru climbed up the tree like a monkey. And once he found stable footing on top of the metal fence, he called out to his sister. I know you're gonna beat yourself up over a small mistake like this, so just clear your name and everything will be fine. Fight for a better day. That's what you always say, right? Masaru flashed a small smile before hopping down from the fence and sauntering off. Oh my god. After a few seconds of watching him leave and making sure he was walking the correct direction towards the elementary school. He's elementary school? Eri laughed through her nose and jogged towards the field, helping set up the rest of the equipment as more track team members filtered in. Saki seems like a teacher? Alright, we'll look into it. The teacher, Saki-sensei, said while jotting down the final notes of the report. Picking up on his dismissive tone, Eri reiterated the price of the missing tools. Oh no, I get it. It's just, considering how things have turned out in the past. He trailed off and turned towards the window, airing himself out by the shirt collar. Damn sure is hot these days. Oh, oi, Koizumi. Since you're here, why don't we discuss your science grades? Eri unconsciously jerked back at the sudden, full frontal attack. Oh, what she would subject herself to in her obedience to the captain. Pop quiz for you. How many Earths would it take to fit into the sun? What's... I'll give you a hint, the sun is massive. Hey, I almost forgot. Do you know this? How many Earth we can fit in the sun? Like a lot, right? You know that plum tree by the fence? We found some cigarettes around there. Isn't that tree like a national treasure or something? Cigarettes, huh? He stretched and after leaning back in his chair, let out a short but exhausted groan. Ugh. Must be Sakai. Either her or the other one. The bad Ashikaga. The bad Ashikaga? Oh, sorry, there's 2 Ashikagas in the school, so I say that to avoid confusion. You should know her, the track team dropout, he sighed. No relation or anything, by the way. Eri then recalled something she'd heard a few months ago on the track field. Track member. Did you hear? Did you hear? What? Apparently, Ashikaga has started hanging out with that delinquent girl. What, you mean the tea ceremony girl? No way. Right? I wonder how things ended up like that, I mean. What a waste of talent, huh? Hey, that's enough rumor mongering, you two. You'll never break your records wasting time like that. Oh, new scene. Once the bell signifying lunch period rang out, Eri went straight to investigating. She'd already confirmed that her friends with whom she'd usually eat lunch knew very little about the two suspects pointed out by Saki-sensei. She never imagined she could manage to scarf down a massive lunch like hers while sleuthing about, and was quite impressed with herself afterwards. Oh, the tea ceremony girl? Bright Girl. The name's just Bright Girl. If anyone stole your track and field equipment, it would be her. Yeah, loud youth. That crazy girl threw Saki-sensei's lunchbox out of the school. He's a meek boy. The occult club. You've never heard of it? How is that even possible? Your former prince is part of it, you know. I see them make trouble all over the place, so I'm not really sure where they hang out. You could try asking that Hatogaki Koji guy, though. He's in the same class as Ashikaga. I think he's class rep. I see them talking every so often. So we can try. We're gonna go talk to Hatogaki Koji, same class as Ashikaga, and Hatogaki Koji is a class rep. Hatogaki Koji. Eri remembered him making a big deal about justice and such during his run for student president. Ashikaga? He's the class rep Hatogaki. Why ask me? I heard from a reliable source that you two talk from time to time. You're the class rep, aren't you? It makes sense that you'd be keeping tabs on, you know. No, he said very slowly while glancing around. Wait, you're not? But my reliable source. People just assume that because I pick up our actual representative's slack, it's a real hassle. Huh. Hold on. Does that mean you're actually friends with Ashikaga? Even better. You've got to know where she hangs out at lunch, at least. Friends? I'm not really sure I'd say that either. Hatogaki became noticeably fidgety, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. I guess I've noticed that every time lunch starts, she makes a beeline for the door and goes upstairs. But that's it, he mumbled, scratching his cheek while staring intently at the floor. The stairs. Either she was heading to the third-year classrooms, or she would climb all the way to the top to rooftop. Gotcha, thanks. So you really don't know anything else? How about someone called Sakai? I heard she was part of the tea ceremony club before it closed down last year. I don't know anything about that gorilla. Gorilla? Now excuse me, I should be heading back to class. And hiding his unnaturally pale face, he shuffled off robotically. Tick, tick. Tick, tick, tick. For some reason, she could sense some sort of shame from him, but didn't dwell on it. Almost breaking into a run in the hallway, something for which she's gotten into trouble many times in the past, she made her way up the stairs 2 steps at a time. Thanks to team members and classmates that made it their business to keep track of such things, she, on her part, had no idea the school even had such a club until just moments ago. Eri managed to find herself face to face with one of the named delinquents on the stairs leading to the rooftop. Whoa! Oh! Sakai! I thought Sakai was a man because he said gorilla, but Sakai is a beautiful woman. So, you're accusing me of stealing it. We have a music coming out. No, it's nothing like that. She certainly didn't look the part of the delinquent that'd been built up. Can you hear the music? Even so, Eri began to falter under the pressure of Sakai's gaze, which she could swear was piercing right through her half-baked lie. Such an icy cold glare, Eri thought. Maybe all those rumors were true after all. Well, I'm listening. She enacted it in her mind over and over on the way. You hooligan, she shouted out, pointing a finger of justice at the evildoer, who'd melt into a puddle of confession on the spot. Eri inwardly scoffed at herself for thinking for even a moment she could stand up for any cause, and resorted to Plan B, the much more realistic course of action. You're a part of an occult club, right? What of it? I was hoping you could do something to help me find it, you know? Don't you guys, like, consult ghosts or something? Eri stammered, saying the first thing she could think of. No, I can't say we've done anything along those lines. Though our club is still young. Huh? Well, that's fine. What do you do if you don't mind me asking? Nothing really. If you want, maybe I can forward your request to our club president. Your story is exactly the type to get him all riled up. Oh, better yet. You can tell him yourself. Who's the president? Eri reluctantly followed the head of cascading hair. Huh? Oh, Eri reluctantly followed the head of cascading hair, which is Sakai, down the hallway to an unused classroom, only to find the door wouldn't open no matter how hard they pulled. Sakai pressed her ear against it to listen. Stepped back with a sigh, and then tapped her foot impatiently. I can come back another day. Ignoring her, Sakai started banging on the door and called out in a loud voice, "Bang, bang, bang. Hey, Press! I know you're in there. Open up!" Hey, are you really sure he's in? Call it a supernatural intuition. Be right back. Please wait right here. Oh, that's why Sakai is a gorilla. She's like just banging her head on the door, impatient. Sakai returned with a paper fan and something wrapped in tinfoil. Just watch quietly. Sakai set that something down on the ground and started fanning the scent towards the door. Sniffing, Eri finally identified that something as a baked potato. Soon enough, the door unlocked and slid open. You just can't resist, can you? So this is Takeda? An unassuming, sleepy-looking boy stumbled out of the dark room but froze upon realizing he'd been tricked. Eri silently played spectator as the probable president lifted his eyes, only to be greeted by a wicked grin. With a flick of the wrist, Sakai dramatically clacked her fan shut, causing the boy opposite her to blink. Don't be too angry with me, Press. You wouldn't answer any of our calls, so this is the only way I could get through to you. Takeda, I won't reprimand you as long as I get to eat that, he said heavily. Help yourself. As if a ravenous wolf, he tore off the tinfoil and dove face first into the piping hot potato. He likes hot potato? Thanks, Sakurai-san, he said with a burnt tongue. Sakai's full name is Sakurai-san. She grinned widely. That's Sakai, actually. Oh wait, no. Sakai is the name and Sakurai-san is not the name? but feel free to call me whatever you like. Is that any good? Bien. Sakai slaps him across the shoulder ostentatiously. What is this word? Ostentatiously. Well, Press, you look rather relaxed this evening. I didn't interrupt a nice dream or anything, did I? Oh my god, Takeda seems like a very beautiful man. I get a feeling that it was nice, but I can barely remember it. I get the feeling that it was, no. He took another bite. Feeling Sakai's stare, he slowed his chewing and then swallowed nervously, shifting his eyes between the two girls in front of them. Eri straightened her posture a bit as he finally seemed awake enough to notice her presence. You're not expecting something in return for this, are you? Oh no. Oh, nothing more than your gentle counsel. Sakai then patted Eri on the shoulder, prompting her to speak. By this point, I'd be beyond Sakai to try and recall the details of Eri's request. Excuse me. My name is Koizumi. I was hoping you would listen to my request, a request for the Occult Club. I'm afraid our club meetings are every other day other than today, Thursday. And we sometimes do weekends. He returned towards Sakai. I would have expected you to know this. I did think this might interest you. Hear her out, why don't you? We're not exactly the request-taking type of club. It's about time our dinky little group made a contribution to society, don't you think? Please! Eri bowed deeply, facing the floor. Looking down at her, he scratched the back of his head and yawned. I somehow doubt Sakai-san, of all people, would know what interests me, but I'll hear you out. Really? Thank you. Eri relayed all the facts about the missing track equipment to him. As she spoke, she noted how the boy's half-lidded eyes grew more and more vigilant, and how he began to nod intently throughout her explanation. Come to think of it, I think that's one of the 7 mysteries of our school. What? A ghost that steals athletic equipment. I believe you missed some details, or possibly added some. I don't remember anything quite as lame as that. It's a very serious problem. In fact, we were studying those mysteries, though we were going in order, and that's the 5th one, if memory serves. We haven't even made a dent in the first one. Takeda began to walk off in the middle of her sentence. Hey, where are you going? Are we taking this request or not? Of course we are, but not recklessly. Have you seen our other member today? Not today, no. Last I saw her was yesterday. Needed her to fix something up and she completely ignored me. Sakai shifted her eyes to the ceiling. Something tells me she won't be up for this either. And why might that be? Well, considering who's asking. She was interrupted again, this time by yawn. First, caffeine. Oh, where are my manners? I'm Takeda. I look forward to working with you. On account of the summer heat, Eri already spurned the idea of a visit to the school rooftop, but with the potential meeting with Ashikaga weighing on her mind, her steps became even heavier. The loss of the Formula E of the track team wasn't explosive in the least, but had it been so, things might be easier right now. Instead of any true bitterness or hard feelings, a mere indifference had pervaded, which, at least on Eri's part, could only be perceived as a constant state of limbo in which unspoken feelings were buried and stored away to burden those involved, feelings that felt as though they would last for the rest of their high school careers. It wasn't until the quiet drama of last year's incident that Eri fully realized just how daft she could be picking up on social cues. At first, she thought it all only a minor setback. Certainly not one she couldn't overcome if she'd only worked hard enough. That naive, youthful confidence was thrown to the wind. The indomitable spirit that she'd believed herself to possess, torn to shreds by the unending, soul-draining apathy offered by each of her peers. It was only that year, with the recruitment of fresh first years, that things finally started to look up, though Eri had yet to shed the title, Tiger of the track team. That is to say, she still played the role of pack mule / the muscle in an attempt to keep spirits up. So much for the incident. As to the person Ashikaga herself, outside of the loud congratulations and other routine sports team proceedings, Eri's interactions with her were relatively sparse. Still, Eri harbored nothing but admiration for her, though said admiration was understandably tempered by the captain's barely hidden coldness towards their former star. As much Eri would have liked to lead them to reconciliation, any attempt at forcing it would feel only like cruelly poking at open wounds. All this to say, she had no idea how to approach Ashikaga, much less inquire into the cigarette situation. Wow, so much going on. No, she thought to herself. As long as I treat her like anyone else, things will work out. She went on in her mind, and they climbed again the steps towards the roof, going up, convincing herself that if she could leverage her admittedly excessive curiosity about Ashikaga, perhaps that would break down any barriers. Psyching herself up inwardly led to nearly tripping over a step outwardly, interrupting some quite trivial banter between her two guides. Oh, I'm okay. Takeda helped Eri stabilize while Sakai, who'd let out a short huff of amusement, made her way to the door. You know, I was under the impression that the rooftop was off limits. It's a bit of a miracle that we managed to get permissions. I guess you could put it that way. She sighed. Don't know why I fought so hard for it in the first place. Hardly spend any time up here. Oh, so their club has permission to go up the rooftop, but they barely use that place, so that's why they're saying that. Do I even want to know what happened? Eri thought to herself. Takeda, as if reading her mind, continued. Long story short, it took a lot of persistence and just the right amount of exhaustion on the teacher's part. If anyone asks, we're looking for UFOs up here, alright? Ooh, I like this. Eri's eyes narrowed as her vision was enveloped in the brilliant azure of the sky. Here we go, we found Ashikaga, finally. Ashikaga turned at the sound, wasting no movement as always. As Eri watched this, she was struck by the restful expression worn on her face, which communicated a restful or perhaps wasteful year out of the limelight. Put another way, it was though she didn't have the extra energy to expend on movement in the first place. Man, it's like a poem. This whole game is like a poem. After a short burst of wind provided some much-needed temperature regulation, Eri shook herself out of her observations and bowed towards Ashikaga. "Good afternoon." Ashikaga could only blink at the sudden address, though she could barely hear the words that came out of Eri's mouth. "Oh, Ashikaga's a girl." Takeda stepped into the blinding heat. "Glad you're here. Let's solve the 5th mystery." "Not today," Ashikaga sharply interjected. Just as quickly as the trio arrived, Ashikaga strode past them, and just before making her way through the door, turned back to say, "I'm sorry." With a short nod to the club's client, she fled down the stairs. Eri perplexedly turned back to the remaining occult club members, not sure of how to react to the nonchalant shrug the two shared. "So much for that," Takeda said easily. "Well, if she's busy, she's busy. Things will be a bit more difficult without her help, but I can't surrender now after that potato." Eri was certainly discouraged by Ashikaga's curt exit. Anticlimactic to say the least. She couldn't help but link the girl's departure with her own sudden appearance. However, Sakai and Takeda seemed to take no mind to her attitude, as though that was business as usual. She supposed she could take this as a reassurance of otherwise. So, the president peered into Eri's face, hoping to find some hint of the name that evaded him. "It's Koizumi." The girls reminded him in unison, Sakai muttering an extra, forgetful, under her breath. "Ah, right. So, Koizumi, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're missing track equipment, right? Track equipment, no? Mind pointing out where the equipment shed is? It's over here." Eri motioned for the two to follow her as she jogged to the far side of the roof, pointing at the small building with her feet planted on the ledge of the railing. "I see." Takeda copied her, leaning dangerously over the railing himself and surveying the field. "Oh, so they're looking on the, school field, leaning on the rail here. Do you see something?" "I'm looking for possible blind spots and hidden paths that a thief could use to infiltrate the shed," he responded without a hint of humor in his voice whatsoever. Eri blinked at him in confusion. "A thief? Shouldn't we be looking for a ghost?" "Ah, we don't believe in that crap. We're the occult club in name only." Sakai waved a hand and laughed. Eri looked back and forth between the two club members, puzzlement clear on her face. "Seriously? Even Ashikaga?" "Especially Ashikaga," Sakai snorted. "Why she joined this club in the first place, still a complete mystery. I've asked her a million questions, but I still feel like I hardly know her myself." "Huh." Eri looked up towards the sky and blankly watched the clouds pass by. She'd momentarily forgotten why she was up here. Swept up in her own emotions as she was. Despite their claims, spending time up here with this club certainly made it feel as though she was becoming cursed. "The plan!" she shouted out inside her head, her eyes widening like saucers. She discreetly glanced at Sakai, who was now checking out the field alongside Takeda. A metaphorical light bulb flashed above Eri's head before she gestured toward the very tree in question. "Actually, the track team captain and I found some cigarettes around that plum tree. If you don't mind, maybe we could investigate that as well?" I suppose they could be related," Takeda pondered, rubbing his chin with his index fingers. "We'll go down and take a closer look after school then." "Thank you," Eri smiled at him as they headed towards the roof door, glad that he still retained his sober enthusiasm. Eri looked back at Sakai over her shoulder to study her reaction, but as Eri half expected, the girl had the usual cattish smile plastered on her face. She certainly didn't seem to be displaying any nervous tics, but Eri told herself not to be fooled. Something told her that this type of girl likely found enjoyment in the chaos she sewed. She reminds me of Power from Chainsaw Man. The three reconvened as soon as classes were over, and once they gathered around the tree, the club president went straight to work. After some initial inspection, he offered his rough report. This had apparently gone unnoticed by those privy to the littering issue. There were small dents in the tree that were just deep enough to be identified as deliberately made. Upon confirming with Eri, the size of the dents seemed to match the missing track spikes. Oh, perhaps someone used those spikes in a cursing ritual. Have you heard of the Ox Hour shrine visit? Huh? If I recall correctly, that needs to be done 7 times in a row for the effect to take place. So if you were lucky, we'll have time to catch... So if we're lucky, we'll have time to catch them in the act. I see. Eri groaned in desperation. Who would do something like this? Isn't there such thing as a ritual that doesn't ruin public property? I've heard that ritual, Sakai says, sidestepping Eri's fuming. Doesn't it involve nails and straw dolls? Oh, those like cursing ritual. How exactly would track spikes... Suddenly, Takeda brought up a finger. Silencing her. Not slicing her, silencing her. Hold that thought. What? Sakai asked, her expression communicating that she's already given up on finishing said thought. Takeda surveyed the surroundings, turning in a few circles, then his eyes seemed to land on the school building. I feel as though someone is watching us. Huh? A chill ran through Eri's spine. She only then realized how weak she really was when it came to horror stories. Where? Takeda seemed deep in thought, tilting his head as he continued observing the building with a careful eye. It was then that the sound of approaching footsteps took their attention away from the supposed presence, snapping both Takeda and Eri out of their tense postures. Someone's approaching. Oh, it's Tsukimi! You brought the occult club? You really lack sense sometimes. You were aware of the identity of the members that make up this club, right? Eri could offer no response, instead looking down as thinking of what to say. How to communicate her plan, unraveling as it was in bringing them here. Saki-sensei wasn't much help, so... Who's this? Hey, cut her some slack. Hiragi. I mean, if anyone can find the culprits, it'll be fellow deviants, right? She playfully bowed towards them. Please hurry, I can't perform without my lucky pole. Oh wow, now there's Obara here. Well, I've got my suspicions as well, but thanks for coming out here anyway. Come on, Captain, you too. Let's put it here. I meant no offense, she said, frowning. I wouldn't be surprised if Ashikaga was smoking around here out of spite. Ha! I can't help but worry about her. Sakai grinned, jerking upwards as if her interest was finally caught. My, you sound a bit bitter. A slight flush rose to Tsukimi's face, but she maintained her stoic body language. If you're implying I'm upset you took her from us, you're very mistaken. Just look at her in her current state. I'd say it's a good thing she quit. Captain! Eri's voice rose, but as usual didn't affect anything. So you say... Takeda cut in. From what I've seen, she still seems plenty fast. Regardless, if that's how you think of things, then I'm glad. No need for any hard feelings between our clubs. Then he, in a slow and relaxed gait, stepped past Eri. This way to the equipment shed, right? Oh yeah. Someone has to be messing with me, Eri thought. It would have been better if I was just standing watch here the entire time. Yep. That's all of him, Obara reported with a worried smile. The equipment's back. That's all that matters. Tsukimi then made a point of giving Eri the same dirty look from this morning. We'll have to remember to keep a closer eye on this shed, alright? So wait, the equipment was there all the time? And Eri was just, going mad? Aha, of course. Eri nodded, then turned to address the occult club. I'm sorry for bringing you here for nothing. If it's all right with you, Takeda began casually. I like to keep investigating. Could be a deliberate, possibly mean-spirited prank. Are you sure? I mean, if it's just a prank. No stopping him now that he's like this. His curiosity is piqued. Sakai picked up and inspected the previously missing vaulting pole. Personally, I'm a bit more concerned with those cigarettes myself. I don't like being caught up in false accusations. Bah, seriously, who'd be stupid enough to smoke on school grounds? Eri side-eyed the girl at this. As she says, I don't do things in halves. We're doing it of our own violation. We're doing it of our own volition. So no need for polite gratitude. No, either way, As her voice trailed off, Takeda stepped out of the shed. Sakai followed shortly after him, gently dropping the pole in Tsukimi's hands. The three track members glanced at one another. Why don't I grab us some snacks? The kind that'll cool you guys off. Captain, do I have your permission? That's fine with me. Just don't get sidetracked, okay? With that all settled, Tsukimi turned the pole and, prior to taking her own leave, issued an order to Obara. I'm going to return this to Hiragi. You better stick it out and keep an eye out around here. Her eyes narrowed once more, signaling her intent. Yes, Captain. He chuckled with the usual sarcastic tone. Yes, Captain. As Eri, who just finished a short chat with Obara, stepped out of the dinky shed, she spotted the two occult club members crouched beside the same tree. She jogged up to them and then patted Takeda on the back rapturously. I'm going to get snacks. Would you two like anything? Takeda shut up. What caused Eri to take a step backwards, however? So Takeda's like, and Eri's like, oh. Who was holding a cigarette between her lips. Huh? Wait, Sakai is smoking? It's not a new one, Sakai stated simply, as if that answered anything. Eri just stared blankly at her. I just want to compare brands, she continued, only making things more confusing. Eri's brain felt fuzzy. I wouldn't blame you for suspecting her. She most certainly acts the part. Eri thought for a moment. That was the original reason why she was doing all of this, but after seeing Sakai and Takeda defend Ashikaga, when all Eri could do was stand there helplessly, she couldn't help but want to believe otherwise now. She felt pathetic about her wishy-washy frame of mind. Truthfully, I did suspect you initially, Sakai-san. Now we're being honest. But now, somehow, I get the feeling that you wouldn't do anything that awful, even if you are a little crazy. Eri wrung her hands together nervously, acquainted with being so blunt, especially straight to the person of interest's face. To her relief, all Sakai did was bark out a laugh, and even Takeda's lips quirked in amusement. Ha 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 ha. You should probably spend more time with us before making that judgment. Wait, which judgment? Anyway, I'll go for a Mont Blanc. Soon enough, Eri came jogging back to the field, bag of snacks rustling in her hands. She distributed all of the items, save those picked out for the two occult members who were now nowhere to be seen. Eri asked the nearest runner where they went and was informed that a teacher caught sight of Sakai with a cigarette in her mouth, after which the two instantaneously broke off in completely different directions. Tsukimi once again appeared behind Eri without so much a sound. They really are unequivocally delinquents, aren't they? Her shoulders shook with laughter. I've never seen something so ridiculous. Even I find it hard to imagine Ashikaga hanging out with such an unruly crew, but it's not as though any of us knew much about her in the first place. Eri found herself not being able to say anything back. In fact, she had no clue what she would want to convey to this individual. Did she want to laugh along and agree, or did she want to call out Tsukimi on her increasingly unbecoming behavior? It was much easier to fall into the prior. It was the type of response she always resorted to. After all, but she lacked the energy for even that. Her change in demeanor didn't go unnoticed by the captain, and soon the tension was at least partially released as she let out a sigh, coupled with a quick pat on Eri's shoulder. They took off towards the building, so I suspect they ran inside. If you're so keen on seeking out their help, you can start there, I suppose. And as usual, Tsukimi deemed the conversation finished and turned away before Eri could reply. So Tsukimi is like, she talks, she like goes away. All Eri could do was look up in exasperation. She supposed she would just have to scour the school and find them. I suppose I'll start with the roof, Eri thought with a sigh. Eri thought it an old choice of accessory for someone like Ashikaga. She'd only noticed it recently, but it was hard to miss on the few occasions they crossed paths. The new addition was a pretty character, perhaps from a magical girl show affixed to her phone. Eri once thought she could recognize that character from her childhood, and with that, perhaps strike up a conversation, but her recollection ultimately failed her. There's a cat. These facts aside, the charm in question was now held in the mouth of a cat which was perched right by the school's front door. There was no time to think. Eri shoved the snacks into her pockets and darted after it. She called out in as sweet a voice as she could muster, which became difficult considering her increasingly worry of the charm being swallowed whole. This is her charm. The cat's stolen it. At times it would pause, and the moment she thought she might lay hands on it, it slipped mere paces away in an almost mocking manner difficult not to take personally. Finally, it disappeared behind the corner of the building. Closing her mind to her senses, she ran with reckless abandon, forward, dashing past those classmates who'd inform her of the occult club's existence this morning, and then past Sakai and Takeda themselves, who seemed to be running in the opposite direction, the teacher still hot on their trail. At last, she stopped behind the school, where she realized both that she'd run a full circle around the campus perimeter, and that the cat was no longer anywhere in sight. Eri was unwilling to surrender, but she simply couldn't move another step, and so leaned against the wall to catch her breath. When Eri thought she could finally continue onwards, her face wrinkled in pain as she felt the pangs of an oncoming stomachache. She did her best to ignore it, but in an instant her mind started flashing towards the possible suspects behind this sudden attack. Well, she thought, that much should be obvious. She was referring, of course, to the lunch her brother delivered that morning. She checked the food herself, but wasn't poison meant to be inconspicuous? It took a moment to realize how silly she was being. Masaru wasn't, by any means, a bad kid. Would he be the type to play some prank on her? So she's thinking the food was bad, that's why she was acting weird today? It was then that it all caught up to her. That is, a wave of anxiety of a magnitude that, at least as far as she could recall then, Eri knew not whether she'd ever experienced before. Her eyes darted around her as her chest tightened to an almost painful degree. At first, she thought all she needed was some water, but things quickly spiraled out of control. Her mastery of her breathing, second nature since birth, slipping away. She's like collapsing. Oh. She didn't quite collapse, but fell to her knees fast enough for any onlooker, had they been there, to easily mistake the motion as such. In that state of panic, she, in a manner not dissimilar to just moments prior, desperately attempted to piece together why this might be happening. This was Koizumi Eri, the tiger of the track team, who, with her one-track mind, was meant to single-handedly put their name on the map, at least according to herself. A stomachache is one thing, but how could something as measly and intangible as stress get in her way? She's never been as happy as she is now. She's never found something she could so readily put her all in. She adores running, so why? So she has some stress. It's a mental issue. She thought of the faces of her teammates. In the dark void of her mind, something about them seemed off. The sensation of being completely alone, no matter how ridiculous, absurd, or far from the truth it was, wouldn't leave her. In those miserable few seconds, which almost felt like an eternity, she, at least physically, truly was alone. And it was in that solitude that the core truth of everything revealed itself to her. Eri had denied it systemically up to that point in time, but in such a time of vulnerability, the floodgates were battered, allowing those unwanted feelings to seep through. The burden of the track team, of its mocking members, of its consistent failure to reach its old heights, all clogged up her vision, suffocating her semi-literally. Vestiges of hatred swarmed up in her, and her mind gave way to voice the ugly thoughts of her heart, so long ignored. Why is everything on me? Can't they put in a quarter of the time I put in? Oh, so this is like her emotions all flooding in. How long do I have to do this until someone appreciates my effort? Is everyone conspiring against me? For once she allowed the all too human sense of self-indulgence tar the life she'd built up. And to her shame it felt good. Good to put the burden on others. She wasn't the one messing up. It was those who couldn't be bothered to put away the equipment themselves. So people used the equipment and didn't put back in? Is that it? It was those who made every excuse not to attend practice. Those who groaned in annoyance whenever she attempted to psych them up. Everything felt so twisted in this strange reality that she couldn't help but smile, though her breathing showed few signs of slowing down. At some point, and this was somewhat dramatic of her, this she would readily admit today, she believed that she might be breathing her very last breaths, which only made her body gasp for air faster. She thought she might use those final moments to physically utter all the curses against her teammates that she could, when suddenly a quiet voice rang out in her ears. Koizumi-san. She recognized the owner of the voice right away. It was soft, muted, even barely audible over the sound of Eri's drumming heartbeat. However, in the expanse of darkness that was the jail of her own mind, it was the only thing grounding her. Still grasping for breath, Eri's voice came out pinched and hoarse. It's passing. Just hold on. So Eri's having a panic attack, right? Despite Eri's eyes being squeezed shut, she could sense that person nodding beside her. And soon only the sound of the wind and trees filled Eri's ears as she laid there on the ground, a warm presence waiting beside her. Huh? Oh, Ashikaga's face. I thought it was a cat. Once Eri opened her eyes, Ashikaga's face appeared in Eri's field of vision, her expression hardly denoting concern. That wasn't of any consequence to Eri for the simple fact that in Ashikaga's arms that cat sat, looking perfectly relaxed and content. Somehow, in spite of the circumstances, white-hot shame didn't overtake Eri's body like it would have if anyone else witnessed her in that state. Rather, Eri's face, which had previously been frozen, relaxed instantaneously, as though she and the other girl were on the same page. Suddenly, Eri had some strange feeling that they'd been friends this whole year, though they hadn't even exchanged words. Of course, this was all imagined per her typical habit of getting ahead of herself, and she, now wanting nothing more than to continue their conversation, quickly said with a weak smile, "Thank you. It was just a stomachache. It's gone, I think." "Do you need to go to the infirmary?" Eri shook her head. She'd already begun to regain her composure and senses, making quick work of wiping out the doubts that'd been tearing away at her. More importantly, that cat. "You should at least get out of this heat. You're sweating." "Ah, that's from chasing it around. I'm glad it wasn't a wasted effort." Ashikaga looked at the cat, which had climbed out of her arms and was now using her shoulders as a pillow. I see. Ashikaga's voice was unaffected and emotionless, and yet it had this soothing effect, as though it was the one thing Eri needed at that point. Finally, she remembered the ice candy in her pockets. The ice candy? In the pit of her stomach, she felt the upcoming gesture could be some symbolic way to usher Ashikaga back into the track team. Eri felt Ashikaga, the abandoner, could be the savior to bring the team back to life. As if offering this childish snack could produce the miracle of Ashikaga quitting smoking and returning their team to its former, albeit short-lived glory. So, Ashikaga is like the track star, but he quit and he started smoking. And Eri's trying to get this track team back to, like, you know, the good state, the glory days. So she's trying really hard, but it's not working well. So she's like sharing this snack with Ashikaga, hoping he's gonna join back. Ashikaga blinked twice. She blinked before finally taking the candy. Even in her state, Eri perceived Ashikaga's hand, and then her lips. Oh wait, it's a she, right? Ashikaga's a she. Quivering slightly, which almost made Eri laugh out loud. About earlier, sorry, I wasn't avoiding you, if I gave off that impression. So, do you recognize me? Eri paid no heed to the embarrassing things coming out of her mouth at that point, slightly delirious as she still was. Of course, Koizumi Eri. One who always loses things. Yeah, that's right. That's me. Eri laughed deprecatingly. Of course, nobody thought of her as the tiger of the track team. She was just seen as an airhead. I want to talk, Ashikaga said, gesturing to the charm in her hand. You really helped me out. Thank you. Eri blinked up at her, and soon enough a genuine laugh erupted from her chest. Ha ha ha. It was as if the release of that glee was what made way for air to freely enter her lungs. Whatever help she provided or didn't provide, that moment gave Eri the reassurance she'd been needing for longer than she had allowed herself to realize. Without another word, Ashikaga lifted Eri to her feet and began to help her into the shade of the school. With a satisfying crack, Eri splitted the strawberry-flavored ice candy in half. She handed one to Ashikaga, who, rather than put in her mouth immediately as Eri did, seemed to be enjoying the cool surface of her palms instead, letting the cold droplets of condensation drip from her fingers. Ashikaga looked down the empty hallway before further explaining the situation. That cat followed me back to the school and stole that charm out of my hand. I'm sorry if it's caused you trouble. Huh? It's not your fault. No, I should have held on to the charm tighter. Ashikaga scratched at her chin. I never expected him to pounce at me. It's because I got too close to him yesterday. I'm still not quite... The remainder of Ashikaga's story quickly exceeded the amount of words Eri's heard come out of her mouth during the entirety of their time in the track team together. As it happened, Ashikaga found a cat stuck in a tree the day prior. Much to her chagrin, she never learned how to climb a tree, and so tried several different methods to secure him. First, she stacked some unused jumping boxes, which did turn out to be left abandoned by a forgetful Eri, but That still didn't provide the height she needed. The track and field equipment shed was left unlocked, so she borrowed a few more tools. You tried to pole vault to the top of the tree? No, I was using it to prod the cat down. As you can guess, that didn't work. He's a very stubborn cat. That's when I put the spikes on. Ah, so it's not a curse. Or whatever. Just using the tools to get the cat down. Using track spikes to climb a tree, huh? Apparently, it was that day that Ashikaga acquired a new necessary skill with the help of spike shoes, of course. By the time the cat was let down, Eri had just locked the equipment room. And being unable to access it, Ashikaga hid the gear in an inconspicuous spot to be retrieved the next day. That was what Ashikaga had been looking out over the rooftop for, to find the right timing while avoiding any unnecessary run-ins with track members. Incidentally, it was only a bit later that the cat she saved returned to the school and stole her charm. Oh my god, so that's all what happened? That's the gist of it. It sounds like I have even more to apologize for. So Ashikaga was in the middle of everything. No. No one was inconvenienced, really. Ah, except, I guess, Hiragi. Hiragi? Oh, just the first year who won't participate unless she gets to use that exact vaulting pole. The captain always tells her off for that. I'm not sure I've ever told anyone this, but it couldn't hurt now. During competitions, I always wore a specific set of socks. Ashikaga looked up, as if recalling a fond memory. Yes, the holy pair, I called it. Also, I always ate eggs on rice the night before each race. Smart. Huh. I wasn't expecting you to be so superstitious, Eri said, tipping her head. Of course, Sakai's earlier claim regarding Ashikaga's absolute skepticism towards ghosts factored into that preconception. Rituals and superstitions are two different things. Superstitions are dangerous to rely on, but rituals are perfectly harmless. Ashikaga raised a finger knowingly. Eri pressed her lips together and nodded, trying to suppress a laugh. You know, that doesn't really differentiate them. Ashikaga cleared her throat. All that aside, what were you doing out there, Koizumi-san? Hasn't practice started? Oh, actually, I was looking for your club mates. I wanted to thank them with these ice candies, but they were missing by the time I came back. I see. I can give them a call if you like. Once Ashikaga made her call, she relayed to Eri the president's message, which went as follows. We're hiding right now. We think we may have figured out the perpetrator behind the cigarettes. Another Ashikaga, funnily enough, smoking in a bathroom stall. Ah, Koizumi brought us snacks? Tell her thanks, but you two had better finish them up before they melt. As to where we are, I'll give you a hint. Between the lions. Aww. With a sigh, Ashikaga closed her flip phone and stashed it away. Obediently starting to eat her ice candy as the president suggested. She then shrugged at Eri, who'd managed to hear the whole conversation. She listened to the entirety of Ashikaga's retelling to ensure her ears weren't deceiving her. I don't mean to sound rude, and you must get asked this a lot, but how did you get caught up in that club in the first place? Don't you ever miss it? Running? From out the classroom window, Eri watched leaves dance through the air as a breeze passed through the trees. Despite having poured her all into the sport herself, she had an odd feeling that if she were asked the same question, she wouldn't know how to answer. To be honest, I'm not sure, Ashikaga said softly, reflecting Eri's thoughts. Back then I would focus on nothing but running. and now I feel as though I'm focusing on nothing entirely. Somehow it feels as though there's no difference between the two. Eri started to gnaw on her ice candy, and seeing this, Ashikaga did the same. Between crunchy bites, Ashikaga laughed quietly. The occult club's useless. Saki-sensei certainly won't let me forget that. I find myself not minding the wasted time. Ashikaga tightened her grip on the charm still in her hand. Someone once told me that you should focus on your own happiness. It sounds selfish, doesn't it? Later on, he added that if you manage to do that, those that care about you will become happy as a result. Huh, she shrugged, flushing slightly at the sentimentality of it all. Eri tilted her head. It could stand to be a bit more nuanced, but I get that point. I feel like I've misunderstood you this whole time, Ashikaga. They exchanged short smiles, but remained silent afterwards, leaving things there. While they shared some common ground, Eri developed the sense that, despite getting along decently well, they weren't destined to become any more involved with one another. Of course, there was no indication here that Ashikaga had found happiness either. She was perhaps lost in her own way, but she at least seemed to have a better vantage point from which to search for it. They both had their own worlds they now belonged to. In comparison to Ashikaga beside her, Eri never stopped to take a look at herself to see if she was truly happy. When Eri eventually explained to Tsukimi all that had transpired, the captain couldn't help but let out a small burst of laughter. Eri couldn't tell whether or not the captain was laughing genuinely or out of spite, but none of that mattered anymore. That other Ashikaga, the one Saki-sensei seemed to have initially deemed the good Ashikaga, and a few of his friends were suspended soon after the incident as well. This game reminds me of a popular saying, don't pursue your hobbies because you're bound to become bored and start to hate what you used to love. Apparently, the watching eyes Takeda felt during their tree inspection belonged to this delinquent. He changed his usual smoking spot shortly after in a desperate attempt to avoid suspicion, which was clearly to no avail. The ice candy Eri initially bought for Takeda and Saki had melted and gone to waste, but even when she bought new ones for them as a thank you gift, Sakai waved her off, saying, "We really didn't do much to the president's disappointment." Eri later heard rumors that the bathroom stall the good Ashikaga was using flew off its hinges from being kicked in, but despite floating rumors, no one could confirm whether that was Sakai's doing. The vibrant green leaves turned into an array of golden and apricot leaves. Then the tree branches were devoid of colors and life entirely, and soon enough blushing pink cherry petals fluttered down the sky like confetti. As Eri transitioned into her third year of high school, so this means like a full year passed, she would continue hearing rumors about the occult club. With the sudden disappearance of the club president, theories about Takeda dying of a mysterious illness or of a spirit's curse spread wildly. Takeda died? Building on this was a particularly odd rumor that the new first-year member was a ghost that wished to fill Takeda's vacancy. In addition, stories that Sakai threatened Ashikaga with a knife broke out after she was suspended, never returning. As for Eri, I think Takeda and Sakai both got suspended, right? Because they smoke and just weird. As for Eri, she ultimately decided that she still wanted to test herself, to see how far she could go with her team despite the many challenges it presented. But she wouldn't run in hopes of bringing the track team back to its former glory. She would run for the simple fact that she loved running. And all she could do was hope that her passion would spread to the others around her. Oh, I like this design. Let's put it like that here. To that end, all she could do for the sake of the one who helped her realize this, however, inadvertently was wish her some fortune in her quest for her calling. This is Ashikaga watching her, and this is like Eri practicing. As the days and seasons passed and Eri continued to run with all her might, she would catch glimpses of Ashikaga on the roof every once in a blue moon. Sometimes with that new first year and sometimes alone. Bitterness, loneliness, emptiness. Eri wondered what emotions stirred in Ashikaga's heart as she would watch the small people below go on about their lives. I think this game's genre is reading. Visual novel, but it's just reading. It's a book. I'm reading a book. Every now and then, Eri contemplated going up to that roof and finding the answer for herself. But she, for the duration of that year, never felt ready to reach out to Ashikaga. The isolated, dusty blue hue of that rooftop became a realm for Ashikaga and Ashikaga alone. Like a star shining faintly all by its lonesome in that white backdrop. Nonetheless, Eri would always find her gaze wandering towards the top of the school building. And before she knew it, their high school lives were over. There was no sight of Ashikaga at their graduation ceremony. For some reason, that day has stuck itself in her mind all this time, every little minute detail able to replay itself with incredible precision. How odd for a day that merely felt like a short drinking break, a mere rest stop in the middle of a lifelong train ride, to have such a lasting effect on her. Eri sits up with a yawn before rounding up all her belongings. Oh, this is like the epilogue, right? As she steps towards the soon-to-be open doors, she dials her family's landline number, which she still memorized by heart. Hello, this is Koizumi Fishery. Eri smiles into her phone upon hearing that familiar, albeit now slightly deeper voice. Hey, Masaru. Oh, so years passed and Masaru is older, so he got a deeper voice. Eri! He gasps excitedly, which is soon followed by animated background noise from her other family members. Hey everyone! She laughs and calls out loudly, hoping they can hear her over the receiver. She can now hear them fighting for the phone, only causing her laughter to escalate. I'm about to get off the train. Could you tell Dad to come meet me? Sure thing. And Eri? Masaru trails, voice softening. Yeah? Welcome back. Eri looks out the window as the train comes to a stop. Those words bringing a beaming, winsome smile to her face. I'm home. Oh, this is like the Japanese tadaima, and then Masaru says okaeri. Arriving at Mokuzai Station, Mokuzai. The next station is Kusa. The doors on the right side will open. Oh, is this Eri? She's like an adult. After several harsh winters and warm springs passed, Eri feels like she was able to blossom into the person she strived to be. Yeah, she grew up. She's still that same airheaded girl who runs towards her ambitions with all her might. But now she remembers to slow down every now and then, taking her time and taking in her surroundings. Despite everything, she can proudly say she does not harbor any regrets. However, as the train door opens and the chilling autumn wind rushes through the gaps, her mind drifts back to that school rooftop, while white cumulonimbus clouds. Wow, what's this? Cumulonimbus clouds against a searing blue and raven hair fluttering in the breeze on the back of her eyelids. She cannot help but wonder, what kind of person has she blossomed into? And it's even to be continued? That is a lot of reading. But I think I get it. Okay. Talk time. This game is about a girl who, thinks about what others thinking of her. So like, also like she's like someone who is really passionate about her goals. So she really worked hard on her tracks, and like it's like she's a perfectionist. Okay, she's basically a perfectionist that she wants to have good relationship, good scores, like good everything. She didn't realize that she can like handle everything. Like she didn't realize she was able to control everything. She just wanted to be perfect about everything. But then like, yeah, she's hard at herself, and then she because like it was too much, she had a panic attack, and she was like starting to like hate others. Like, why isn't everybody like appreciating my hard work towards the team? Like, I'm working so hard. Why isn't things working out? And then she met Ashikaga, who was like Ashikaga was like better track member than her, but Ashikaga just dropped out because Ashikaga started to like not like tracks like running. So basically Eri learned something from Ashikaga. Like Ashikaga was like kind of like chill, and she was like, I mean, I'm good at it, but if running makes me sad, I'll stop it. Like Ashikaga knew how to take care of herself. And Eri learned that like chill mindset of like, don't push yourself. What really matters is you enjoy the process, not the results, or you know what I mean. And Eri learned something from Ashikaga, and then because of that like memory, she grew up to be more like self-caring, and you know, she's back at home, and like she's more like like a fully functioning, wise, mature human. I think that is basically the story of the game, or this visual novel. It's about, don't push yourself. It's okay to, it's okay to like hate something that you start to do. If you're tired, you can stop. What really matters is you enjoy the process, not like making it perfect. I think that's what it is. All right, that was Tomorrow Will Be Dying. Whew, I think my brain cells died like a lot by reading. My oxygen level inside my brain like plummeted. Anyways, that's it.